my name is Tami Cannizzaro, and I head up the social media for a division of IBM, and I'm here with Ted Rubin, who's the Chief Social Marketing Officer of Collective Bias, and is coming out with a new book, Return on Relationship. And so we thought we would tape an episode for the CMO Club TV and talk a little bit about social media and how CMOs are struggling today with social media and truly leveraging this powerful force at our hands as old media turns to new media.
You know, it's interesting you said that, Tami, because when I first got involved online was in 1997, working with Seth Godin at his company Yo-Yo9, and people back then were calling what was happening with the internet new media. But it really wasn't new media. It was old media just in a new package. And it was just being absorbed in a different place. But now, in my humble opinion, this really is the new era of new media. Because content is being produced by everybody out there. It's a total democratization of content. And not only the content that's being democratized, but where we absorb it, when we absorb it, how we absorb it, and who we get it from has totally changed.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing CMOs make today?
You know, I think some of them are very simple. First of all, they're not themselves using social media in the way that everyday people are using it. So what CMO would spend millions of dollars on a TV ad and not watch TV and not understand the medium? And that's what they're starting to do today with social media. So that's one that's right out there then. Another major mistake they're making, and this is coming from the whole C-suite, not just from CMOs, but they're not enabling and empowering their employees to be advocates for their brands. I mean, how many companies these days are shutting down social media within the organization? Let's think about how absolutely ridiculous that is. First of all, who doesn't have a smartphone? So everybody's doing it anyway, but they're sneaking off to do it. Second of all, why wouldn't you want people using this medium that's so powerful, understanding the other people that are using it, and then enabling these people to build their own personal brands? They're afraid of these things because they're losing control. But what they don't understand is they've already lost control. They don't own their brand anymore. Consumers own their brand. And the best advocates who really can be the most influential just because of where they are their employees. So why not empower these people to do it instead of cutting them off? And then another one is how many companies are hiring PR agencies to do their social media? Tell me how that makes sense. The culture and the DNA of a PR firm is less is more, control the message. And social is complete opposite of that. It's let it go, let's hear everybody's opinions, and let's get as much information out there as you can and let them use it. So there's just a major disconnect for me there in all those areas.
I like that. I heard someone say today's digital and social is the handshake of today, of our generation. And I really liked that. And you know, it said to me that it's personal, right? That it's personal, it's about handshake, it's about making that relationship, which reminds me of how you speak about return on relationship.
Yeah, and there's a line, recently I heard something that I loved, and it was saying that what's happening with social now is it's more about expressions instead of impressions. Okay, so it's about how we feel, it's about the things we say. And what happens at a lot of companies is when they hear about relationships, they start shaking and they get very nervous because they're like, how can we possibly build relationships with all these consumers? How can we scale that? Well, the truth of the matter is you can scale it the way you scale everything else that has massive people paying attention and participating, but very few people winning. Let's look at sweepstakes. Let's look at lotteries. How many people win those things? But everybody goes into them. Why? Because they see the person that wins and they say, I want to be him. You can do the same thing with relationships. So you go online, you communicate with people, you do what I call looking people in the eye digitally. We're all taught when we meet people, look them in the eye. Always pay attention. Don't be flittering your eyes around the room. And people don't understand how to do that digitally. What they're doing is they're clicking a button saying, you're my friend, and they're moving on. What they need to do is answer them by name. Look at their profile. Make a remark. When I follow someone on Twitter or if I respond to a tweet, I respond by name. I look at their profile. I look at something as simple as where they live, and I'll make a comment about visiting Washington, D.C., or I love skiing if they live in Park City, Utah. There's so much you can do in that respect, and what happens is all the people out there doing what we call lurking on social, which by the way, people say lurkers don't have value. They have the most value. They're the people that are listening. Think of a cocktail party. If everybody was talking, nobody would be hearing or learning anything. Everybody would be talking at each other. So what happens here is people who are lurking, who are watching on social, who are reading the Facebook page, and they see me as a brand communicating with somebody, they don't have to communicate directly with me. They say, oh my God, he's talking to Tami. How cool is that? I could have done that too. But most people don't even want to. They're just excited to see it's happening with someone else.
I'm surprised how many CMOs, aren't engaging in Twitter and actively involved in social. Does that surprise you that you don't see more CMOs, more aggressively tackling, and putting that personal investment into social?
You know what surprises me more? Is that VPs and directors of marketing aren't doing it. So Cheryl Burgess, who writes about social media, recently wrote a post about how limited the C-suite is in their activity in social platforms, and how could they not get a grasp of what's happening here. What I find much scarier than the C-suite not being there is that I sit in meetings every week with directors of marketing, with VPs. These people range in age from 28 to 35 years old, and obviously older and younger. Why aren't they in social? They'll look at me and say something about Twitter like, well, I don't really care what someone's reading or when they go to the bathroom. And I'm like, that's 1996. I'm sorry, that's 2006. We're in 2012 right now. I mean, people are using this to aggressively build networks, to build relationships every single day. I take people every week that I meet via social platforms, and I meet them in person, and I build them into real relationships. And I do something, really, you know what this is? It's called an iPhone, right? It's an iPhone, folks, right? You know what the biggest word in iPhone is? It's called phone. There's an amazing app on this thing. You can dial a number, pick it up, and hear somebody's voice. It's remarkable. Try to do it every day. I'm going to challenge everybody. Pick up the phone once a day and call someone you haven't spoken to in a while and make a real connection. You might even hear them laugh, you might hear them cry, you might hear them scream, but you're not going to have to use emoticons to show how you're feeling.
What company do you see that's getting it right? Can you give us some examples?
Well, most of the examples I try to bring in are things that happen in my life, because I'm constantly reaching out to companies, I'm constantly interacting via social, and most of the time it's things that are not intentional. So my daughter is 17 years old and she's a photographer and an artist, and she wanted Photoshop. And I went and tried to download Photoshop. And being a divorced dad, I only have limited time with her. And right away, she thinks I'm trying to get away with something because I can't get it downloaded. Dad, where are you downloading it from? Are you really going to Adobe? And I couldn't get it to work. And I tweeted out, really frustrated, love Adobe and their products, but I can't download Photoshop. And I got to tell you, within 10 minutes, I got tweets back from 3 different Adobe employees working in 3 different divisions. 2 of them not even technical people, telling me that they want to help. How can they connect me with somebody? When am I going to have my daughter next? And they end up arranging a phone call for me, gave me an entire hour of time when I'd have her laptop so I could get it installed. Wow. And these people were empowered by their brand. Instead of being told, don't answer tweets, it has to go to the PR company, has to go to our social department, make sure you check what you're answering with somebody, your superior, before you write it. They were empowered to just reach out and solve problems as everyday employees. And it was a fabulous experience. And I've never been a big Adobe advocate. I am now, and I tell everybody this story wherever I go.
That's great. I love that. One of the things I've noticed on the web, there are certain companies that will respond to your, to your comments on the web with a kind of a pat response, and there are certain companies that will actually respond and take the time for that personal touch.
Right.
And it really does make an impression on some of these companies that really take the time. Home Depot, Zappos, you see it's a person on the other end, and that's so important for that company to make that impression.
And when you find an executive, at Collective Bias, we have a community of influencers, of bloggers. We have 1,800 bloggers approximately. Each have an average reach of about 30 to 40,000 touch points of people that follow them in different places. And we help create media around the path to purchase, the shopping process, retailers. But while doing that, we have this private community that we build sub-communities for all different topics and brands. And we don't even charge for that. That's just part of the process. And the brands that leverage it the most are the ones that have a C-level or a VP-level executive that embed themselves in that community. Communicate with the bloggers around the clock. We have a company called Cookies Kids. The guy that runs e-commerce, he's in that community day and night because he recognizes the value. He talks to them about products. He listens to them. And more importantly than listening, he hears what they say. So he's not just talking to them. When they recommend a product, even if it's not something he thinks really enhances his e-commerce store, he adds it in so that person can raise their hand and go, I recommended that product. And then all the others say, oh my God, that could have been me, I could have done that. We did the same at Elf Cosmetics back in 2009 when I was building the social presence there, eyeslipsface.com, is that when we were bringing out new nail polish colors, we asked bloggers, we asked people to recommend them. And then we picked one of them, just to show that we're including them. It's remarkable what can happen, and again, it scales because of the people. These people tweet it out. They put it on their Facebook pages. They make videos about it. You don't even have to ask them to. They want to be heard. Remember something. Social media is about women. Women control the purse strings in this country. 85% of sales are controlled by women. And there is no social media without women, because men, we don't communicate that way, right? We do what I'm doing. We talk at people. We don't even hear each other. We wait until the other guy is finished talking so we can jump in and say what we're going to say. Women listen. They share opinions. They want information. Men aren't smart enough to get opinions from 10 different people and then decide what to buy. We just can't, we can't process it all. We want our guy. We call the one guy for the computer, the one guy for the car. Women ask all their friends, and then they take all that and they process it. When we go shopping, there's no way we're taking a picture of a shirt we're going to buy and sending it out to 10 of our friends and asking their opinions. You know, maybe one guy, and then if we bring it home and we don't like it, we don't even bring it back. We just throw it on the bottom of the floor. We don't change it 3 different times because some girlfriend called up in between and said, no, I didn't like that blouse. So what we're doing is, if we empower these people to share, we empower women to talk to each other and give them the tools to do it, and then we listen and pay attention, it's remarkable what we can accomplish.
So, in theory, it sounds fantastic, right? You'd be crazy not to be on board. But in practice, it's hard, right? It's hard to develop a Twitter following and to start blogging and really getting active digitally and develop your digital brand.
Right.
So how would you recommend that CMOs get started? What's the first step?
Well, let's talk about something easy. You talk about building a following. Why do you even have to build a following? Get on Twitter. Go into Facebook. If you want to set up a separate, profile because you don't want it to be your family, although I'm a big believer that we need to know who each people are personally, and we connect better with people, especially emotionally, when you know that I'm a divorced dad, when you know my life revolves around my teenage daughters. And we won't go there because that could be a whole nother conversation about teenage girls and dads. But let's talk about just reserving your Twitter handle, getting in there, reading tweets, going to some people you hear do it right, asking questions, and saying, who should I follow? Follow at Ted Rubin, follow at Tami Can. See how they interact and engage. Start paying attention the same way you would if you were about to buy an ad on a major TV show. And you want to know, what is that all about? You're not just buying it, you want to see who's watching it. You want to see the Nielsen ratings. You can do the same thing in social. So that's one really easy thing to do. Another thing to do is ask questions. Wow, that's remarkable. You remember that thing? You can ask people what they think. Let's talk about like moms. I travel a lot with my partner who founded Collective Bias, John Andrews. John was the head of emerging media at Walmart. He is the man who invented and built the Walmart Moms program, which back then was called Walmart 11 Moms in 2007. And John has 15 years of CPG experience before that with major brands. We sit in meetings all the time and someone tells us their idea and they say, so what do you think? And every single time I hear John say the same thing, I start smiling and I hear his North Carolina Southern drawl start getting in and he goes, well, why would you ask me about what 28-year-old women want to buy? Let's go ask them. And don't ask them in the format where they know what the answers are expected of them. Ask them in a way where they feel totally comfortable telling you how they feel, interacting with your brand, going shopping for it and giving you an example, searching for it and telling you what they found and how hard it was to find what they needed, or what it was like when they went into the store with 3 little kids pulling at their arms and you're giving them a damn QR code to pull out their phone and hold it up to, because you don't even realize that most moms are shopping with their kids running around the store. You didn't even think to ask that. Or why is it they don't buy a particular product? Because they don't like the packaging, because they can't see inside. I mean, it's so easy to ask questions, and social gives you that ability to do it. So, that's another one that's really easy. And I guess if you're looking for a third, start empowering your employees, the ones that you do trust. Because remember something, if you don't trust your employees, you've got the wrong employees. And if you can't empower them to speak about your brand, who can you? So I would start doing that, and I think those are the easiest things you can do, that you can do at a moment's notice and just jump right in. And the other thing about jumping right in, don't think you need a comprehensive, all-inclusive, global social strategy. We all heard of Nike, right? Just do it.
That's great. That's great. It's interesting. You hear people talk about the investment in social media. Is it expensive? Is it free? And really, when you start to think about it, the investment is actually in personal time, right? It's about personal investment and personally engaging in social, being willing to put the time in to make the relationships and really to put yourself in it in a way.
It's like anything else. It's a value exchange. It's a matter of how much time you have in the day to do different things, and then there are ways to learn how to be more efficient in how you do it. But A lot of it has to do with, we all value relationships, some people more than others. It's a matter of the time you're willing to put in. And not only that, but leveraging what you have at your fingertips, all these other people that are around you that can help you do it. And then understanding that most people are participating vicariously by watching others. So understand you don't have to interact with everybody to scale relationship building. You need to build it with the few, and then the many are building that relationship with you just by watching you do it with others.
So what do you say when someone says to you, I just don't have the time. I don't have the time in my day. I hear that a lot. I don't have the time in my day, to get onto all these social media platforms. They're moving so quickly. It's going to take a lot of time investment. I'm too busy. I'm an executive. I don't have the time.
Well, first of all, you don't have to that's one of the problems is they all think they have to be on everything. They think they need a YouTube channel, Facebook page, and every day something new is coming out. People like us, or at least like me, jumps into everything because I want to understand it. But even I spend more time on certain platforms than others. I pick what my favorite is. So pick one. Start somewhere. You don't have time to work out, but you go to the doctor and he tells you that you got to lose 50 pounds, and you start thinking about working out, or you have to eat more healthy because you have cardiac arrest one day. But your business is going to have cardiac arrest if you don't start connecting with consumers, empowering advocates, talking to influencers, and understanding that the world is changing. And you don't own your brand anymore. And if you don't start listening and engaging with people and interacting, you're going to fall behind the people that are doing it.
Great, thanks. Any final words for CMOs?
Yeah, CMOs, start acting more like children. Start thinking more the way children do. Wrap your arms around childlike imagination and try to be more like kids, because kids don't say, I don't have time for something new. They say, I want to do that. Kids don't say, oh, you can't do that. They say, let's try. Let's open up our creative mindset. Think more like children, and I guarantee you that your companies will benefit in the long run.
That's great. I love that. In fact, the other day I was having a conversation with my daughter, and we decided we were going to have a role reversal. She was going to be an adult, and I was going to be a daughter.
Well, I like that.
And I said to her, great, we're going to schedule it for Saturday. And she said, Mom, kids don't plan, they just do.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for joining us for this episode of CMO Club TV.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.